So we are reacting to game theories, the lore of Dandy's World explained. Let's go.
Roblox is at it again. Move over, doors. There's a new horror game in town that's taking the internet and our subreddit by storm. And its name is Dandy's World. But don't trust that smile for a minute, friends, because behind it is a sad and broken character who ruined the lives of his friends, his creators, and the very studio we're exploring.
I mean, this isn't the first time that a creation is gonna ruin the studio, right? Like, we did that with Bendy and the Ink Machine already.
Hello, Internet! Welcome
Nice.
to Game Theory, the show that just
Hey,
can't
Tom.
get enough black goo. Think about it. Bendy, Doors, Welcome Home, Bob,
Yeah, exactly.
FNAF, all of them have a black, goopy thing that leads to one thing. Lore. We should probably just plug it into my veins at this point, but alas...
Yeah, what is up with all the black goopy thing in all these games? Do the horror game makers really like oil?
HR won't let me do it. And given it's been a while since my last black goopy hit, when I saw our subreddit blowing
That doesn't
up
sound
with
sus
a game
at all,
called Dandy's
Tom.
World that also had its own black goo, I was very excited to gobble up whatever sticky dark lore this thing had to offer. On the surface, Dandy's World
America needs oil? That is
multiplayer
true.
survival horror game on Roblox. The game itself takes place in an abandoned educational center and museum called the Garden.
Oh yeah, it is an
We play
educational
as these
center.
little creatures known as toons. Our job is to hop into the elevator with some friends and complete various tasks while collecting items that can be traded into the lead character Dandy to unlock even more toons to play as. But as you might expect, we're not the only things creeping around these empty halls. The deeper we go, the more we start to get a sense of what happened to this place once filled with the sounds of children's laughter and joy. What happened to this beloved place to shutter its doors, and why it has suddenly come back to life with evil versions of the toons known as Twisted.
Yeah, also, what's up with so many horror things happening at children's places? Like, FNAF has children dying in their animatronic suits. This game takes place in a children's center. Poppy Playtime is about children being put into weird monster things. Why do the monsters always target children? Leave the children alone.
Trying desperately to stop us, dripping with that delightful black goo. There it is.
Man.
Oh, that's
What? What? Tom really likes the black goo stuff, huh? I don't judge.
Step into the elevator, loyal theorists, because we're gonna get to the bottom of what's really going on in Dandy's World and
Okay,
its
Tom.
smiling rainbow flower mascots. The history of the Garden View Center actually starts with this note that you can find if you don't die to the various Twisteds chasing you around the various floors. It's an application
what's
for a
this?
business loan dated 1984. From this, we can see that the Garden View Center is the brainchild of two young visionaries, Henry Stein and Joey Drew. Wait, no, I meant
Wrong.
Delilah
Wrong
Keene
series.
and Arthur Walton. Although the connections between these two and Bendy definitely keep going. Thanks to a note sketched out by
That's what I
Arthur,
said.
we can tell that he was the one who originally designed the look of the toons. As for Delilah, she was a bit more sus. After seeing the sketch of the lead character Dandy, she writes back to Arthur saying,
What about the others? You said he had friends, yes? I'll need them. Respond ASAP. By the way, out of coffee. Get more. Also ASAP.
Damn.
if she's
You need
anything
to
like
chill.
me without my morning coffee, things are about to get real bad.
He's mean.
Even worse if she's like Santi. But despite the clearly ominous language, Arthur doesn't seem phased, saying,
You've never failed me before, Delilah.
Then, in a recent update, the developers added these portraits of Garden View's two founders. Arthur is dressed to the nines, I tip my hat to you, sir, and Delilah is covered in black goo. See, Arthur, this is how it's...
Damn. Look at Delilah. Can you ever trust a person like that? Never trust someone with that face.
starts. And then you decide to leave, and your business partner creates an inky dimension inside their apartment, which is meant to house an inky version of you that they can torture for all eternity. It's a tale as old as time. Although this black goo is a little different to the living ink from Bendy. It's called ichor. And not only can we find this black goo all over the place during the game, but when you get caught by a Twisted, your toon explodes into the stuff. It's almost like the Roblox PG safe version of blood. And the name certainly lends itself to that line of thinking. Ichor isn't just a made-up word. It comes from what is very quickly becoming my favorite thing to talk about on this channel.
Is it an anagram?
Greek mythology. I wonder why there's so much of this in indie horror.
Greek
these days.
mythology.
Probably a theory for
Well, as I do my masters in English, Greek mythology is like in my veins. That's just an
So make
average
sure you ink
literature
splat that
major
subscribe button like your
experience.
life depends on it, because it just might. Anyway, the
Already
ancient Greeks
subscribed,
believed that
Tom.
instead of having blood coursing through their veins, the gods had a mysterious substance known as ichor. They also believed that if a normal human were to come into contact with ichor, ichor, they would die instantly. So that's it? Ichor is just the blood of the toons? Oh no, my friends, there is a lot more going on here. Because ichor is also this game's form of currency. We collect more and more of this stuff as we descend further into the levels of the Garden View Center. But what do we use this precious ichor to purchase? More toons to play as from Dandy's shop. Almost as if ichor isn't just the blood that's coursing through them,
So it
but it's
makes the
actually what is
toons.
used to make the toons.
Uh-huh.
In the notes and photos we found from earlier, while Arthur was the one who originally designed the toons, it was Delilah who brought them to life using the ichor. I guess it really is just the ink machine after all. And similarly, it has an
Yeah,
unfortunate side
it
effect.
seems to have a lot of influence from Bendy and the Ink Machine. Good for the game. I love Bendy and the Ink
As you
Machine.
play and encounter more of the Twisted Toons, you unlock research that gives you more lore about each character. Several of the research entries mention that it's the ichor, and more specifically being overcome by ichor, that turns these happy-go-lucky toons into the twisted monsters they are now. That also explains why all of the Twisteds can be seen with ichor pouring out of every orifice. They are literally so full of the stuff, it's leaking.
So they're
out
full of black
so
goo.
then, if this stuff
Okay.
is so volatile, why make toons to begin with? As I mentioned, Arthur and Delilah get their loan in 1984, and from there, they set up the Garden View Center as a children's educational center and museum. What it was a museum of back in 1984 is unclear exactly, but based on
Of trees. It was a museum of trees. Tom, we see it right in the office. I don't know why they're a museum of trees. Maybe they had monkeys or birds. We can hear birds in the facility, right? So maybe that's what they were a museum of.
two Polaroid photos dated 1988, what is clear is that these characters were originally designed as a selling point for the center. Unlike other attractions, the Garden View Center didn't have just people in mascot costumes or cuddly animatronics. They had
Also, it's literally called Garden View. So like the whole point of it is to view gardens. So it would make sense for it to be a museum of trees, right?
breathing versions of the toons that kids could come and meet. We all know how well that goes. Although it appears as time went on, these characters
The characters
became
are so
popular
cute.
beyond just the center. Despite this place looking abandoned for years, there are a bunch of posters still lining the walls that give us some interesting details. First off, they made me realize that my own office walls were somehow looking more barren than an abandoned
Is this
facility.
an ad,
It's as if
Tom?
someone had come and stolen everything before I moved in. Thankfully,
This
our
is
good
an
friends at
ad,
this
right?
place saw my
Yep.
plight and offered to sponsor this episode to help me out.
Good for you guys. I'm gonna skip this real quick.
Apply your code at checkout.
Thanks,
again to
Display.
Display for sponsoring this video, but it's probably about time we get back to what's lining the walls of the Garden View Center. In every corner of the Garden View Center, there are CRTs playing a TV show full of lovable toons who might look a little familiar. There are also posters of the different episodes of this show, along with the dates they originally aired, hung up on the many walls of the building. This show is Dandy's World, and the earliest date we see for
Also,
the show
yeah, another thing. Why do all the mascot horror stuff happen before the 2000s? Like, I don't think there's a single mascot horror game out there yet which happens in the year 2000 and after that. For some reason, they're always in the 20th century, in the 1900s.
is for the
Children were
episode
easier
Snowy
to be
Adventure, which
attacked
aired
back
on
then.
Christmas 1990. 2 years after the earliest date we know these tunes to have existed, the Garden View characters became so popular that they eventually created a show. The show wasn't just about the many adventures of Garden View though. If you take a look around the place, you can actually find storyboards for the show. If you don't know, storyboards are essentially what TV, movies, and even gaming studios will use to plan out a sequence of events and the shots that they will need to capture or draw for any given project, meaning that this show was actively being worked on here at the Garden View Center. This wasn't just a place where kids could come to learn and play. It was
They used mascots more, I think. That is true. I think mascots and companies were more a thing in the late 1900s. What happened, by the way? Why don't we use mascots anymore? Do you think because they just turned out to be creepy dudes in suits? Also, it's still a huge thing in Japan. They have like mascots for everything.
was also a TV studio. And as I realized that, I couldn't help but be reminded of a certain other TV studio slash theme park from the real world that was popular around the same time. A studio that in itself was also famous for its use of a slimy substance.
What?
Nickelodeon Studios. If you're old enough to know what I'm talking about,
Nickelodeon.
I'm barely old enough to remember. But when you work for TV studios like Fox and Disney, you get very familiar with the history of competing studios. Nickelodeon Studios was part of the wider Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida.
Damn, Nickelodeon was such a huge thing when I was young. And then they started to do things with slime for some reason. Then I grew up and I lost interest in anything that Nickelodeon owns. But yeah, it was a huge thing back then.
Garden View Center, it was both a place for kids and a working studio. Classic Nick shows like Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, and the early seasons of all that were all filmed at Nickelodeon Studios. But the fun part was, people that were coming for the theme park side to keep their kids entertained could also sign up to come and see their favorite shows get made. If you were lucky enough, you had the chance of being in the audience to watch these shows being made live.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios.
I mean, live audiences were a huge thing for like every show back then. Every show had a live audience.
In Orlando, Florida.
And of course, we can't forget about the slime. Nickelodeon and their patented green slime go together like peanut butter and jam. Sorry, jelly. No, if Icor is supposed to be
It's okay,
View's
Tom, you can
version
call
of
it
slime,
jam.
that would make Double Dare a whole lot more morbid. This idea of live studio filming is exactly what we're seeing happening in the Garden View Center. While the clips for the TV show are definitely cartoons, the characters themselves are toons, and they talk as if these events were real events that really happened. For example, one of the episodes of the Dandy's World TV show was called Winning Big, and it features a toon named Scraps on a game show, well, Winning Big, with the show being hosted by another toon, V. But despite this presumably happening on a fictional TV show, the actual V and Scraps have memories of this event. In one of the dialogues that can happen among the characters between levels, V and Scraps say this.
Hey V, you're not mad at me for winning all of your game show prizes, right, V? I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Yeah, they do yap a lot, and they do talk about things that like have happened as their toon lives. So it does make sense.
Dialogue, V claims Scraps' victory on the game show was down to pure luck. It doesn't really make much sense that V would be so salty about what happened on a TV show about her. Instead, it's more likely that she is mad because it really happened. These toons are more than just live action characters for the kids to meet. They were the performers that starred in the show. And those kids who were touring the center would have the chance to watch the show being recorded live. And I use the word would have very specifically. The show was a massive success.
Don't tell me they got the kids into the toons. It's FNAF all over again, isn't it?
Know that by 1990, Dandy's World was on the air and ran for over a decade. But as with all indie horror histories, the winning streak couldn't last forever. The final episode of the show was planned for July 21st, 2002. But from
that's like a month before I was born. Wait, no, it's July. It was after I was born. Hell yeah.
It never actually made it to air because, according to the city newspaper, on June 24th, 2002, the Garden View Center closed its doors. The last aired episode we know about was from 2001, which again lines up with what we saw from the Nickelodeon studios. The studio began to lay off staff that same year, 2001, and the game shows being produced there had production halted, while Nickelodeon animation continued in other locations, which is another reason why I feel like Dandy's World was being produced as a live-action production. If there was just another animated cartoon, we'd likely see remnants of the show still going on, but as it stands, the show stopped at the same time the studio did. However, compared to Nick Studios' closure being due to the heavy shift in animation and the increase in shows needing to be filmed in Los Angeles, Garden View's closure was a little more mysterious. According to that
someone had to die, right?
Down due to a quote malfunction incident, which, as we all know, is indie horror.
Yeah, someone died. That's literally the indie horror equivalent of, yeah, we had a malfunction.
Or a corporate speak for, our creation turned on us and tried to kill everyone. It's even more suspicious when the creator, Arthur, was asked to comment and chose to remain silent, especially when behind the scenes he makes it abundantly clear that he knew exactly what was going on. He writes in a letter to his longtime business partner, Delilah,
Delilah, we need to talk. I know you've kept reassuring me that what had happened wasn't due to anything you had done. You had to have known this could happen to him. If you did, why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell me? Something like this doesn't just happen.
That him that Arthur is referring to, the one that something happened to, the one that malfunctioned, I believe, is none other than the star of the show, our titular flower, Dandy. Let me explain. Ever since Garden View Center closed down, several of the other toons have talked about how uneasy they feel around him. And we don't have to take their word for it. We can see it for ourselves in-game. In between levels, Dandy pops up in the elevator to sell you power-ups to make your run easier. But if you instead choose to not buy from him, Dandy starts to get more and more frustrated. If you continue to ignore him, things become less fine and dandy, and he'll have a full-blown meltdown. He will turn into his twisted form, and you'd better watch out because he'll soon spawn on the upcoming level to hunt you down. Dandy is a loose cannon, ready to snap at any moment if he doesn't get his way. Based on my years of indie horror experience, my hunch is that this is what happened on the day of the malfunction. Dandy was the first creation, Arthur's main guy, but unlike the others, we're being shown that he can transform into a Twisted rather than just being a Twisted, which lines up with the idea that this mascot malfunctioned, transforming into a Twisted and created an incident that got the entire place shut down. And that hunch proved to be correct when I found his research data.
But then what happened to the kid? If Dandy is a creation from that oil thing and then the toons are also creations from the oil thing, then no human died, right? Or did the kid who was killed got into Dandy and then started doing all of this? But then that couldn't have happened because Dandy has to have killed the kid first. Okay, so nothing haunted as of yet, mostly just malfunctioning robots.
It says, quote, the star of the show, the one who runs the I-Core operation. It's all his fault. Everything we're experiencing, the abandoned studio taken over by monsters, the studio shutting down leading to this point, it's all Dandy's fault. However, the reason for Dandy's snap isn't quite as simple as you might think. With Dandy being the primary mascot in a mascot horror game, it would be easy to just assume he's purely evil. Maybe the fame got to him, maybe he cracked under the pressure, but eventually was overcome by the power of the I-Core and became pure evil. But that isn't the case. There's a little bit of audio storytelling that you might have missed while playing through the game yourself. When Twisted Dandy chases you in-game, a song plays that you've no doubt heard before, but probably never knew the name of.
Yeah, it's a classical music thing.
This song is called Clair de Lune, and it's based off an 1869 poem by Paul Verlaine. A poem about someone who looks happy on the outside, but deep down is sad. Playing the lute and dancing and all, but sad beneath their fantasy disguises. This song is telling us what Dandy and also his friends are. They are these picture-perfect, happy, smiling toons performing for the joy of others, but deep down, they're sad. And they're sad because of what we saw during the Christmas update last year. According to another set of letters, after Christmas had passed, some of the Christmas-themed toons were doing the whole Blair Witch thing and
they had Christmas-themed tunes? Oh man, I would have loved some Christmas-themed tunes.
hiding in the corner. Delilah's response was basically, Christmas is over, just throw them into storage till next year. Even though the toons are alive, they were being abused by their handlers and treated like props. Only good for the thing they were made for and nothing else. Behind their smiles were sad and lonely creatures. Dandy's dialogue when he thinks you're ignoring him at the shop matches this.
We're friends here, right? Friend? What is happening?
He's confused. He's scared. He is terrified that he too has lived past his usefulness. That if he is no longer the star, that he and his friends face the same fate as those Christmas toons. And my guess is that's exactly what happened on that fateful day in 2001. Dandy saw how his friends were being treated. He got scared. He didn't want to be ignored, to be forgotten, to no longer be the star. And as a result, he became overcome by the I-Core and ultimately caused all the toons to be locked away forever, a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why, as his research report says, he has restarted the I-Core project. It's not because he's trying to build an army of evil toons to take over the world or to enact his revenge on those who wronged him. He's trying to atone for his sins. He and his friends lost everything, and it's...
But then, aren't the people still in control? The two guys who made the toons thing? So even though Dandy is trying to get things better, aren't they still getting abused by the owners who can just throw them away whenever they're not useful anymore?
All his fault. Now he's trying to bring the show back to life. He specifically keeps asking you to find and collect and give him the VHS tapes of the show, and he's using the I-Core to create more toons. Maybe, just maybe, if all the toons come back, so too will the fans, the kids, the show, and Dandy can once again be the star he was literally born to be. But he is not the original creator. He's not Delilah. He doesn't know how to use the I-Core properly. He's using too much, and so all of his toon friends are ending up as twisted monsters. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Tom.
Premiere on Game.
So that's interesting. I think there's gonna be a lot more build up on this lore. This seems like we don't have enough information yet, because yeah, it makes sense that Dandy is trying to do something to make his mistake right. We still don't know what the incident is. We still don't know where the owners are, because they seem to be still in control of the show, right? They did get rid of the Christmas ones, so they're still controlling the show, even though Dandy is trying to fix things. So they have a plan for whatever is going on, right? Otherwise, they could just get rid of Dandy as well if it was trying to interrupt with their plans. So yeah, can't wait for more Dandy lore.